Hi, welcome to Microlighting, the affordable way to get your pilot's license and begin your journey as a pilot. I'm going to tell you in this video a little bit about microlighting, how much it costs, what it's all about, and why you should consider it, and particularly why it's affordable. So what you're seeing here is the Eurostar EV97. It's a fantastic aircraft, visibility is incredible and it's really responsive. It's a fixed wing microlight aircraft. The other type of microlighting you might think of and what people usually associate microlighting with is the flex wing. That's a kind of microlight which is an open cockpit and you have the kind of hang glider wing. I'll talk a little bit about the pilot's license now and tell you what's involved, and then I'll go into how much it might cost. So there are two types of microlight license, restricted and unrestricted. I'll go over both, but most people go straight for the unrestricted. The reason is because on the restricted license you're only allowed to fly 8 nautical miles away from your home airfield, which really doesn't make it very usable. But if you are happy just flying around your local airfield, then you can actually get the restricted license with a lot less hours, and that is going to be a lot cheaper. And of course you can convert it at any point for the unrestricted license. Okay, so restricted license, it requires a minimum of 15 hours flying time with instruction, that is with an instructor, of which 7 hours must be solo. So yes, you will go solo before you've actually got your license. You'll do your 15 hours with your instructor, and then when your instructor feels that you are ready to go solo, you'll then go off and do your 7 hours of minimum solo time. Most people take more than 15 hours to go solo, I might add. The solo hours must be completed within 9 months prior to your application date for the license. So that's something to think about if you are doing it in the winter and the weather's starting to get worse and you are unable to fly. You have to make sure that you have your 7 hours of solo time within that 9-month period of application. You of course must pass a general flying test carried out by an authorised instructor. Sometimes this might be the actual instructor that's taught you to fly. In larger flying schools there might be numerous instructors, so it'll be somebody that you're familiar with but hasn't done the bulk of your training. You must also pass some ground exams. You must pass exams in aeroplanes technical, air law, human performance limitations, navigation and meteorology. And these need to be done within the 12-month period before application. Those exams are multiple choice, however, you will need to read up on all the material to make sure that you can answer those questions. If you are working your way towards your pilot exams right now, please check out the mobile app I've created to help you pass your ground exams. It's the best app for enabling you to pass those exams quickly. It allows you to see all of the questions and the questions that you're particularly struggling with, and it has some study material as well. It is the most complete and comprehensive app on the App Store, and it is available for Apple and Android. So flying a restricted license means that you cannot fly when the surface wind is 15 knots or above, when the cloud base is below 1,000 feet, when the in-flight visibility is below 10 kilometers, or outside the radius of 8 nautical miles from your takeoff point. So really for me, I think outside the radius of 8 nautical miles is the big killer for that one. In order to gain an unrestricted license, you will need to complete a further 10 hours of flying time in a microlight aeroplane, with at least 5 hours must be navigation training under an instructor. During the navigation training you will have to complete 2 cross-country solo flights of at least 40 nautical miles on different routes, and during each cross-country flight you must do an outlanding on a site that is 15 nautical miles away from the takeoff point. Once you've got the unrestricted license, you can fly as far away from the airfield as you desire. It's worth mentioning at this point that a NPPL license, a microlight license, will only allow you to do VFR flying. That means visual flight rules. You will not be able to do instrument flight rules. Microlights simply don't have the instruments for that, and it's not valid on the NPPL license. This means that you will not be able to fly through cloud or bad weather, and you will not be able to fly at night. This usually isn't a problem for the hobbyist flyer because you want to fly during nice weather when the flying conditions are very good. However, if you want to fly into some major or larger airports, they will need you to be on instrument flight rules for which you will not be able to adhere to. If the weather conditions are great and you can use the VFR flight rules and they're happy with that, then that's fine, you can land into that airport, but it does limit the weather conditions and the flying that you can do on a national private pilot's license. One other thing to mention is you'll need a radio license. This is not essential, you can actually fly without a radio, keeping good visibility. However, it is highly recommended that you get yourself a radio license so that you can use the radio in order to communicate with other air traffic and let people know of where you are and what you intend to do. A radio license just requires a bit of studying and to go over with an examiner and do a simulated flight where they record the radio conversation that you have, and once they're happy that your radio phraseology and terminology is okay, they will sign that off and you will get a radio license addition to your license. The final thing you'll need as an essential requirement is a medical declaration from your doctor. Now, this is one of the great selling points of microlight flying. You don't need a full medical inspection like you would with a PPL, you just need a medical declaration from your doctor. And once you have that medical declaration, it's your doctor signing off saying that they're happy for you to fly. That will last up until your 45th birthday. After that, you'll need to have that declaration renewed every 5 years up until your 65th birthday, and then from 65 you will have to have that renewed every year. So let's talk about costs. Microlighting is cheaper for a number of ways, one of which is the fuel that it burns. So not only are they lighter, that means that they burn less fuel, but the fuel that they use in the Rotax engines, which is commonly the engine that microlights use, is MOGAS fuel. This is just regular unleaded that you can pick up from any petrol station. It is cheaper than the avgas aviation fuel. So they are designed to run perfectly fine on MOGAS fuel, and it's cheaper not only in price because the fuel is of a cheaper fuel, but it burns less as well because of the limited weight. So there's one cost saving in the fuel. The other cost saving, that means that gets passed on in your instruction. So typically a lesson in a microlight, to hire a microlight for an hour might be anywhere between £60 to £80 an hour, whereas a Cessna 152 might be something like £110 an hour. They do say that you should set aside anywhere between £3,000 to £4,000–5,000 in order to get your microlight license. It depends on how quickly you pick it up, and I recommend doing it intensively so that you can pick it up quicker. Once you've got your license, it's valid for life. This means that it never goes out of date, but in order to keep flying, you do need to keep it current. You have to log up 12 hours of piloting command over a 2-year period, and every 2 years you need to have a check flight with a qualified instructor to make sure that you're still capable and to validate your license. 12 hours over 2 years really isn't much flying at all, and it's highly recommended that you do more flying in order to keep your skill current and up to date. So now you've got your license, you're looking for an aircraft. The most affordable way to do this is to get yourself into a syndicate. A syndicate would be 4 to 6 people who are sharing one aircraft. Now, the great thing about aircraft is that because they're built to such high standards and they're maintained so well, they tend to hold their value. You see a lot of vintage aircraft flying, and when they hold the value like this, it means that you can invest your money and you're not really losing it. Okay, you don't have access to it, but you've not really lost it. You might be looking at putting in anywhere between £2,000 to £6,000 into a syndicate. That means that you can fly it in turn with the other people in the syndicate. Just organise when you're going to use the aircraft so that you don't clash. There will also be hangarage fees and maintenance fees. Now, maintenance and hangarage fees usually comes to about £50 to £80 a month, depending on where you are and what aircraft you have and what your syndicate has decided. But with that money, that means that you're all putting it in together, and that should cover the costs of maintenance and the hangarage. After that, you're just paying for your fuel. And like I said earlier, The great thing about microlighting is the fuel costs are a lot cheaper than standard aviation. So you might be looking at spending £10 to £15 an hour, depending on what you're doing, it might be more. Cruising speed for microlights are anywhere between 60 to 100 miles an hour, usually cruising around about 70 to 80 miles an hour. Top speeds 100 to 120, does depend on the microlight that you've got, of course. That does mean that you can actually travel quite far, so it is feasible to travel the length of England, land in, fill up and take off and do a really nice long cross-country flight. How high can they go? Well, microlights can go as high as most other aircraft really. However, after 10,000 feet by law you do require to use oxygen. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's given you some information that you needed about whether or not to take up microlighting. I highly recommend it. I think it's a fantastic hobby. Flying doesn't have to be as expensive as what people think, and you really can have a lot of fun. So if it's your dream to become a pilot but you're a bit concerned about the costs, microlighting is definitely one to look into. Hope you've enjoyed this. Subscribe to my channel, Pilot Mike, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.